Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being well-informed. Have you ever caught yourself using words like state, nation, and government almost? Well, interchangeably.
Oh, absolutely. It happens all the time. They sound related, and they are, but they're definitely not the same thing.
Exactly. It's so easy to do, but what if I told you that beneath that casual usage lie these really distinct, fascinating concepts with very specific meanings that genuinely shape our world?
And getting those specific meanings clear isn't just, an academic thing. It really impacts how we understand global headlines, political structures, even why certain conflicts pop up.
Right. It's vital for cutting through the noise.
Hmm.
So for this deep dive, our mission is basically to unpack the core definitions, the unique characteristics, and crucially, the differences between a state, a nation, and a government.
And we're drawing this directly from the source material you've shared, aiming for a clear, structured understanding.
Yeah, the goal is for you, the listener, to walk away not just knowing definitions, but really grasping why these distinctions matter for how the world actually works.
You'll start seeing how these foundational concepts connect to everything from big international relations stuff down to, local policy debates. Hopefully it gives you a clearer lens for interpreting events.
Okay, so let's dive in. Let's start with the foundation, maybe the most common term but often misunderstood, the state. When we talk about a state, what are we really defining? Because I think most people just jump to country.
That's the usual starting point, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But a state is more precise in political science terms. Fundamentally, it's a political entity. It has defined geographic boundaries,
Okay, borders.
right, borders. It needs a population, permanent one. It needs a government. And critically, it needs the capacity to enter into relations with other states.
So like treaties and diplomacy.
Exactly. Think of it as a specific territory, with people living there permanently, governed by a system of laws, often a constitution and a government that holds the ultimate authority over everything and everyone inside that territory.
Ultimate authority. That sounds like sovereignty.
That's the key word, sovereignty. It possesses sovereignty, meaning it has supreme, unquestionable authority and control within its borders. No outside power is supposed to dictate what it does internally.
Got it. So examples would be places like Ghana, the United States, Russia, China, France. Those are all clearly states.
Textbook examples, yes.
But what are the absolute must-haves, the non-negotiables? Our sources listed 8 key attributes, and some are kind of surprising.
They really break it down well. First, as we mentioned, territory. A state must have a specific geographic area, defined, recognized borders.
Right, that's not just land, right?
No, it includes water, airspace too. These borders usually come about through history, geography, maybe political agreements, but you need that defined space.
Makes sense. And then population. A state isn't just empty land. It needs people.
Crucially, permanent people. Citizens, long-term residents. This is where, a place like Antarctica comes up. Huge landmass.
But no permanent human settlement.
Exactly. So, and not a state. No permanent people, no state. It's fundamental.
Hey, territory, permanent population.
Yeah.
What's next?
Government. Every state needs a governing body. This is the entity holding political power, making laws, keeping order, providing services.
And this can look really different, right? Democracy, monarchy, dictatorship.
Doesn't matter the form for the definition of a state. It just needs a government.
Gotcha. And then the big one you mentioned, sovereignty.
Yes, sovereignty.
Yeah.
That's supreme authority over its own affairs. No external interference. Making its own decisions within its borders.
This is probably why international interventions get so tricky, isn't it? Even for good reasons.
It directly challenges that core definition of statehood, absolutely. It's incredibly sensitive.
Okay.
A constitution, usually. This serves as the legal foundation. It outlines how the government is structured, spells out citizens' rights and responsibilities, the basic rules of the game.
The rule book.
Kind of, yeah. Then there's international recognition. This one's interesting. Generally, a state needs other countries to recognize it as an independent entity.
Why is that so important?
Because that's what lets it participate fully on the world stage. Diplomacy, trade, joining organizations like the UN. Without recognition, even if you have the other pieces, your statehood claim is, it's shaky.
Precarious. Okay, 2 more.
Permanence. A state is expected to be a lasting institution. Governments change, leaders come and go, but the state itself is supposed to endure over time.
It's built to outlast administration.
That's the idea. And finally, citizenship. The state has the power, the mandate, to grant citizenship. This gives people specific rights, voting, services, protection, but also duties, obeying laws, paying taxes.
That two-way street we talked about.
Exactly. Rights and obligations.
Okay, so those are the 8 attributes. If we understand those, how does a state actually function? What does it do? You mentioned something important earlier about the state being inanimate.
Right, that's a crucial clarification. We talk about functions of the state, but the state itself, as an abstract concept, doesn't do anything directly. These functions are performed by the government, acting on behalf of the state.
Ah, okay. That really clears things up. The government is the actor. So what are these key functions? What are the main jobs the government does for the state?
Well, first and foremost, probably maintenance of law and order, establishing laws, enforcing them, protecting public safety, preventing crime. Think police, courts. It's foundational for any organized society.
Absolutely. Can't have much else without that.
Then there's the protection of individual rights and liberties, safeguarding those fundamental human rights, freedom of speech, religion, assembly, the right to life, and providing legal ways to address violations.
So protecting people from crime, but also protecting their basic freedoms.
Both are key. Next, maintenance of external relations. This is the state interacting with other states. Diplomacy, negotiating treaties, participating in international bodies, representing national interests abroad.
The outward-facing role.
And then a huge one for people living within the state, provision of socioeconomic services.
Like what specifically?
Education, healthcare, building infrastructure like roads and bridges, social welfare programs, public utilities. Basically, things aimed at ensuring the well-being of citizens and promoting, ideally, equal opportunities.
Things people often expect from their government.
Very much so. Also, the enactment of laws. The state, through its legislature or equivalent body, has the authority to create the rules governing society. Criminal law, property law, taxes, business regulations, safety standards.
The whole legal framework.
Right. And of course, defense against external aggression, maintaining a military, security forces protecting the territory and citizens from outside threats, maybe joining alliances for collective defense,
Protecting the borders.
and the people within them. Finally, a slightly more nuanced one, promoting moral values. States often establish and enforce certain codes of conduct or ethical standards, sometimes with penalties for violations. This can be controversial, but it's often seen as a state function.
Okay, so those are the whats. But you mentioned the whys earlier, why these functions matter,
Yeah.
connecting it back to the citizens.
Exactly. It's about that relationship, that sort of implicit contract.
Right, like citizens pay taxes.
So they expect social services back, healthcare, education, maybe parks and recreation. It's a fair exchange.
And citizens obey laws.
So the state must maintain law and order, provide that peace and security in return for compliance.
Makes sense. What about defense?
Well, citizens are often expected to defend the country, perhaps through military service. So the state has that fundamental duty to protect them, both internally and from external threats. Security for loyalty, you could say.
And internationally.
The state can't provide everything itself. No state is totally self-sufficient. So it needs those friendly external relations for trade, for help in crises, for shared security. It benefits the citizens indirectly.
Okay, and the last piece. Citizens protecting state property, reporting crime.
In return, their own lives and property must be safeguarded by the state. It builds that necessary trust between the governed and the government.
This actually leads perfectly into untangling state versus government. We've touched on it, but it's easy to still blur the lines. You said the government is a subset of the state.
Precisely. It's the machinery, the operational arm, that it carries out the state's functions. It's part of the state, not the whole thing.
So if the state is the entire building, the government is maybe the management team and the staff running the building.
That's a pretty good analogy, yeah.
Yeah.
The state encompasses everyone and everything within that defined territory. It's the whole structure. The government is just this specific group of people, elected or appointed, who are currently managing the state's affairs.
Right. So the state needs the government to act.
But the government is just the tool the state uses. They're interdependent, but distinct.
This must mean they differ in scope, too.
Absolutely. The state is much broader, more inclusive. It includes all citizens, residents, institutions. The government is smaller, more exclusive. Only those holding official positions are in the government.
And their basic nature is different. State is that territorial association of people.
While the government is the administrative institution within that state. Governments change all the time. Elections, revolutions. But the state, ideally, persists.
That permanence idea again. Okay, what about tangibility? This one was interesting in the notes.
Yeah, the state is quite abstract. You can't really point to the state walking down the street. But the government is concrete. You can see its functionaries, the president, police officers, members of parliament, civil servants. They're the visible agents.
That makes a lot of sense. You see the government doing things representing the abstract state. And sovereignty, how does that work between them?
The state possesses inherent sovereignty. It is sovereign by definition. The government, however, doesn't own sovereignty itself. It derives its authority, its power, from the state, usually through the Constitution. It exercises sovereign power on behalf of the state.
So the government's power isn't its own, it's borrowed from the state.
In essence, yes. And one last key difference: variety. All states, in theory, share those same fundamental features we listed. They're identical in their basic nature under international law.
But governments.
Hugely varied. Democracies, monarchies, republics, theocracies, dictatorships. The way states are governed differs enormously across the world.
Okay, that distinction feels much clearer now. State as the permanent sovereign framework, government as the temporary operational mechanism within it.
You got it.
Right, let's bring in the third concept, the nation. This feels like where things get even more complex, maybe more human.
Definitely more about human connection and identity. A nation isn't primarily a political or legal concept like the state. It's a group of people who feel connected.
Connected by what?
Usually by shared characteristics. Things like a common culture, language, ethnicity, a shared history, sometimes religion. They're united by a strong sense of shared identity, a feeling of belonging together.
So it's fundamentally a social and cultural community.
Exactly. That's the core contrast with the state, which is political legal. And the really key thing here is that nations don't necessarily map neatly onto state borders.
What do you mean?
Well, a nation can exist entirely within one single state, or it might span across the borders of multiple states. And some nations don't have their own state at all.
Okay, examples would help here.
Sure. Think of the Akan Nation. That's an ethnic and cultural group, mainly in Ghana, but also in Côte d'Ivoire. They share language, culture, history, but live within two different states. Their nationhood crosses the political border.
Right. A nation within states, or spanning states. What about spanning multiple states, but maybe more nomadic?
The Tuareg people are a good example. A nomadic group across parts of Mali, Niger, Algeria, Libya. They share Berber ancestry, language, culture, but no single state to call their own. Their nation exists across several state territories.
And the classic example of a nation without a state.
The Kurdish people, a large, distinct ethnic and cultural group spread across Turkey, Iran, Iraq, Syria. They have a strong sense of shared identity, language, culture, but no independent Kurdish state.
And understanding that helps explain a lot of the conflict and political tension in that region, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It highlights that clash between national identity, the desire for self-determination, and existing state structures. It's not just about lines on a map. It's about people's deepest sense of who they are.
So what defines a nation, then? What are its features? Does it need territory?
Territory is often important, a sense of homeland. But unlike a state, a nation can exist without controlling a specific, defined piece of land. The cultural and social bonds can persist without it. The primary thing is the population, the people who share those common factors, like history or language.
Like the U nation you mentioned, in Ghana, Togo, and Benin.
Exactly. They usually share a common language or dialect. It's a huge unifier. And a common cultural heritage and traditions. Shared stories, customs, ways of life that create that distinct identity.
Religion, too, sometimes?
Often, yes. Common religious beliefs can be a powerful part of national identity, though not always essential. And interestingly, there's often a tendency towards a more peaceful environment within the nation itself, compared to the diversity within a state. More internal cohesion because of those shared bonds.
Okay, so let's put it all side by side one last time. The ultimate differentiation, state versus nation.
Right. Let's crystallize the key differences.
Okay, first, the characteristics of the people. A nation, generally similar characteristics, culture, language, history binding them.
Whereas a state can have, and often does have, very diverse cultures, languages, even political goals, all living under one legal system. Unity is political, not necessarily cultural.
Sovereignty, huge difference here.
Massive. A nation might aspire to sovereignty, but it doesn't inherently possess it. It's a cultural group. A state, by definition, must have sovereignty. It's a defining legal and political feature.
Territory. State needs it defined and recognized.
Nation. Might have a homeland ideal, but doesn't require a defined, controlled territory to exist as a nation. Think Diasporas.
How are they held together? Unifying factors.
For a nation, it's those deeper ties. Shared history, traditions, sometimes ancestry or blood ties. For a state, it's more about political symbols. The
Mm.
flag, currency, national anthem, the Constitution, the government itself.
Political loyalty versus cultural belonging.
That's a good way to put it.
And government power.
The state government has the real power, right? Authority over everyone and everything within its borders.
Yes. If a nation has any sort of internal governance, it's usually much weaker, often informal, and always subordinate to the state's authority. The state government holds the significant power.
And finally, the use of force. The state claims a monopoly on the legitimate use of force within its territory. Its power, legally, is ultimate. A nation might have influence, cultural authority over its members, but it can't typically compel them with force in the way a state can. It relies on shared identity, not coercion backed by law.
Okay, I think I've got it. So let's recap quickly for everyone. The state is that legal political entity, borders, population, government, sovereignty.
Check. The government is its operating arm, the visible machinery doing the state's work.
Check. And the nation is that social cultural community bound by shared identity, culture, history, which might live within one state, across several, or without one of its own.
Exactly. Three distinct concepts, often overlapping in messy ways in the real world, but crucially different.
And understanding these differences really does, as you said, help make sense of things. Conflicts where national identity doesn't match state borders. The challenges of global governance with all these sovereign states and diverse nations.
It gives you a framework to analyze it all with more nuance.
So here's a final thought for you to take away and ponder. Now that we've untangled these terms, how does it change the way you hear about, say, a national crisis versus a state security issue? Does it reshape how you view movements for self-determination, like the Kurds we mentioned, who represent a nation seeking statehood? Think about how these concepts aren't just abstract definitions, but forces actively shaping the headlines in our world every single day.